The first check came in the mail. It was a Wednesday, a plain, windowed envelope with the name of a bank I did not recognize. I stood at the kitchen island, the granite cool under my palms. My morning coffee steamed beside me. The envelope was addressed to my father, Elias Vance. My father had been gone for 6 months. It was not a large check, for $1,247. The memo line said simply, Q4 disbursement, Vance Family Trust. I had never heard of the Vance Family Trust. This was the subtle beginning, a paper slip in a sea of condolence cards and utility bills. I placed it on the counter. I finished my coffee. I would ask my mother about it later. She was staying with my brother Adrian in the city. She had moved in with him after the funeral. She said the house was too quiet. She said she needed help with the details. My mother, Caroline, had always been elegant. Even in grief, she was composed. She wore her silver hair in a smooth bob. Her clothes were simple and expensive. She called me every Sunday evening. Our calls were brief. She asked about the house. She asked if the gardener was coming. She reminded me to check the furnace filter. I was the practical child, Ilara, the one who stayed close. I lived in the cottage on the property. It had been the old carriage house. I renovated it myself. My father helped me design the kitchen. I managed the 10 acres of woodland and gardens that comprised the Vance family home. It was not a grand estate. It was a comfortable, weathered house on a quiet lane. It was my entire world. Adrian was the successful child. He lived 2 hours away in a glass-walled condominium. He was a partner at a strategic consulting firm. He wore tailored suits and gave talks at conferences. He sent thoughtful gifts on birthdays. He visited on major holidays. He was charming and slightly distant, a benevolent satellite. That Sunday, I mentioned the check. The trust, my mother's voice was light over the phone. Oh, that's nothing to worry about, darling. Your father set something up years ago for tax purposes. Adrian has been handling it. It's just a little income for me from some investments. I've never seen it before, I said. Well, the statements probably went to the accountant. Adrian sorted it all out. It's a blessing. He's taken so much off my plate. There was a soft click in the background, a cabinet closing. Is Adrian there? I asked. He's just making me tea. He's an angel. Listen, Ilara, the realtor called. The one Adrian recommended. She thinks we should list the main house in the spring. The market is supposed to be excellent. I felt the air leave my lungs. I looked out my cottage window. I could see the back of the main house. The light was on in my father's study. List the house, I said. My voice was calm. It was always calm. It's far too much for me, darling. And you have your lovely little place. We'll split everything fairly, of course. Adrian is drawing up the papers. It's all very straightforward. What papers? Just some paperwork to make it all official, to avoid probate. Adrian explained it. He's so good with these things. We're so lucky to have him. The call ended with her usual promise to visit soon. I stood by the window for a long time. The check for my father lay on the counter, a trust I didn't know about, a plan to sell the house I wasn't part of, papers being drawn up. This was the first seed of unease. It was small. It was easily explained. A grieving widow, a helpful son, a dutiful daughter in the cottage. The narrative was smooth. It was logical. I almost convinced myself I was being sensitive, paranoid. Then the second check came. It was 2 weeks later. Another Wednesday. Another bank. This check was for $3,000. It was also made out to Elias Vance. The memo said, royalty payment, Vance IP Holding LLC. I did not know my father held any intellectual property. He had been a civil engineer. He designed bridges. He was a quiet man who loved his books and his trees. He did not have a company. He did not have royalties. I called Adrian. He answered on the third ring. His voice was warm, professional. Ilara, good to hear from you. How's Mom's garden looking? It's dormant, I said. Adrian, I've been getting checks for Dad in the mail, from entities I don't recognize. A brief pause. I could hear the faint sound of typing. Right, the trust disbursements. I'm gonna have those redirected. I'll call the bank today. Sorry about that. It must be confusing. There's one from something called Vance IP Holding. What is that? More typing. A sigh, a patient sigh. That's just a shell company Dad set up for his old patents. It's a nothing burger. A few old design patents from the 70s. They get licensed occasionally. It generates a little coffee money for Mom. I'm winding it down. He never mentioned patents. He probably forgot. It was a long time ago. Look, Alara, I know you're on top of things there, but this is my area. Let me handle the financial loose ends. You have enough with the property. His tone was kind, dismissive. It was the tone he used with junior associates. Mom mentioned selling the house. It's an idea we're exploring. The place is a financial drain. The taxes alone are staggering. And Mom's not coming back. It's an asset. It should be converted to something that supports her care. Her care? She's perfectly healthy. Now she is, but we have to think ahead. We're not kids anymore, Alara. These are the hard decisions. I live here, I said. My voice was quiet. And we would find you a wonderful place. Maybe closer to town. This isn't a punishment. It's estate planning. It's what responsible people do. I said nothing. Listen, he said, his voice softening. I'm coming up this weekend. Let's sit down. I'll bring all the statements. We'll go over everything. You'll see it's all perfectly above board. We're a team. Okay. Okay, I said. The line went dead. I did not believe him, but I had no evidence, only a feeling, a cold, solid feeling in my stomach. I went to the main house. I let myself in with my key. The air was still and smelled of lemon polish and old books. I went to my father's study. The desk was clean, too clean. My mother had said she wanted to preserve it as it was, but the stacks of engineering journals were gone. The wire baskets of correspondence were empty. The filing cabinet drawers were unlocked. They were mostly empty, too. Only a few hanging folders remained. Tax returns from years ago, manuals for obsolete appliances. I sat in my father's leather chair. I looked at the empty desk. This was not grief. This was erasure, a systematic clearing of a life. Adrian arrived on Saturday. He brought a woman with him. Her name was Simone. She was an estate attorney, he said, a colleague. She wore a crisp blouse and a polite, neutral smile. She carried a slim leather portfolio. We sat in the living room. Adrian poured sparkling water for everyone. He was in good spirits. He talked about the drive, the beautiful foliage. He complimented the cleanliness of the house. Then he opened his own briefcase. He laid out documents, neat, tabbed sections. This is the trust, he said, sliding a sheaf of papers toward me. The Vance family trust. Dad set it up 10 years ago. Mom is the lifetime beneficiary. Upon her passing, the remaining assets flow to the beneficiaries. That's us. I scanned the first page. I saw my father's signature. It looked like his. I saw my mother. I saw Adrian's name listed as successor trustee. My name isn't here, I said. You're a beneficiary, C. Schedule B, he pointed. My name was there, so was his. It said our shares were equal. What assets are in the trust? I asked. The main house, the investment portfolio, some miscellaneous holdings. The IP holding. That's separate, but it's nominal. Simone spoke. Her voice was soft and precise. The trust simplifies everything, Alara. It avoids the public process of probate. It provides for your mother's care. It ensures a smooth transition when the time comes. In selling the house, I asked. Adrian leaned forward. It's the logical move. The trust owns the house. As trustee, I have a fiduciary duty to manage the assets prudently. Keeping a large, underutilized property is not prudent. The proceeds from the sale would be reinvested. They would generate income for Mom, later for us. I utilize the property, I said. I maintain it, I live here. In the cottage, he said gently, which we would never ask you to leave. Not without a plan. You could buy it from the trust at a fair market price. We could work that out. He made it sound reasonable. A business transaction between siblings. What is the fair market price? I asked. Adrian looked at Simone. She opened her portfolio. We have a preliminary appraisal. Based on comparable sales in the area. She slid a single sheet of paper to me. The number was high, far higher than I could afford. It was a number that assumed a wealthy buyer from the city, a weekend place. It was not a number for a caretaker daughter. I see, I said. We can explore financing, Adrian said. But Alara, be realistic. This isn't your only option. You're talented. You could relocate, start fresh. This place it's full of ghosts. He said it with compassion, as if he were freeing me. I need to think, I said. Of course, Adrian said. He gathered the papers. Take your time, but the realtor is ready to list. The market waits for no one. They left shortly after. I walked them to Adrian's sleek, silent car. Simone gave me a sympathetic nod. Adrian hugged me. It was a brief, firm hug. He smelled of sandalwood and certainty. I went back to the cottage. I made tea. I sat at my small table. I looked at the appraisal paper. The number seemed to pulse on the page. It was a barrier. It was a message. That night I could not sleep. I went back to the main house. I went to the study again. I turned on the desk lamp. I opened every drawer. I felt along the tops of cabinets. I looked behind the framed maps on the wall. In the bottom drawer of a small, forgotten filing cabinet in the closet, I found it. A single, unlabeled manila folder. Inside were carbon copies of letters. My father's handwriting was familiar, precise, angular. The letters were to a law firm, not the one my family had used for decades, a firm in Boston. The letters were dated 2 years ago. They referenced a restatement of the Vance family trust. They requested clarification on the separate pour-over will. They asked for confirmation of the independent trustee provision. The last letter was a draft. It was unfinished. It said, "Per our call, I have decided against nomming Adrian as sole successor trustee. The potential for conflict is clear. I will appoint the bank's trust department to serve jointly with Alara, given her proximity and understanding of the non-financial assets." My heart beat very slowly. I read the sentence again. I had never seen this letter. My father had never spoken to me about this. The draft was unsigned. There was no copy of a restated trust, no new will. I took the folder. I returned to the cottage. I scanned every page. I saved the scans to a cloud drive my father had taught me to use years ago. He called it his digital safe deposit box. I had not opened it since his death. The password was the Latin name for his favorite oak tree. I logged in. The drive contained mostly old family photos, scanned backups of his engineering diplomas. Then I found a folder labeled EFV Legal. EFV, Elias Franklin Vance. Inside were PDFs, a trust agreement. The one Adrian had shown me, dated 10 years ago. I scrolled to the end, my father's signature, my mother. It seemed legitimate. But there was another file, a later PDF, dated just 18 months ago. It was titled VFT Second Amendment and Restatement. I opened it. My eyes skimmed the legalese. It was a revision. It named a corporate trustee, Rockhaven Trust Company, as co-trustee alongside the family trustee. It defined the family trustee as the grantor's issue, Alara Marie Vance. It listed the powers of the family trustee. They included the power to approve the sale of any real property held in the trust. It named Adrian as a beneficiary, but not as a trustee. It also created a separate, smaller trust for him, a fixed sum. It was generous, but not equal. The bulk of the assets would flow to me as the successor trustee after my mother. The document was signed. My father's signature, a notary stamp, a witness signature I did not recognize. I sat back. The quiet in the cottage was absolute. This changed everything, and nothing. Adrian had presented the old trust. He had not mentioned this amendment. He was acting as if it did not exist. I needed to see the original. A PDF was not enough. I needed the physical, signed document. I searched the house again. I searched my cottage. It was not there. On Monday, I called Rockhaven Trust Company. I asked for the trust department. I gave my name. I was transferred. I was put on hold. A man named Robert Parrish came on the line. "Ms. Vance, how can I help you?" "I believe my father, Elias Vance, established a trust with your company. I'm calling to confirm my status as a co-trustee." A long pause. Keyboard clicks. "I'm not seeing an active trust under that name," he said. "There's an amendment, dated 18 months ago. It should name Rockhaven as a corporate co-trustee." More clicks, a sigh. "I'm sorry, Ms. Vance. We have no record of that. We did have preliminary discussions with an Elias Vance about a year and a half ago, but no documents were ever executed. No account was opened." "Are you certain?" "Quite certain. Our system is very thorough. If an agreement was signed, it would be here. It is." I thanked him and hung up. The PDF on my father's drive was detailed. It had signatures, a notary seal. It looked real, but the corporate trustee had no record of it. Two possibilities existed. The document was a forgery. My father had created a false amendment for some reason, or the document was real and Rockhaven's record was wrong, or had been altered. I needed a lawyer, not the family lawyer. Adrian would have spoken to him already. I needed someone completely new. I found Meredith Thorne online. Her practice was in a town 40 minutes away. She specialized in fiduciary litigation, estate disputes. Her website was plain, no flashy graphics. Her biography said she was a former probate court referee. I called. Her assistant answered. I said it was a potential matter regarding a trust and possible fiduciary misconduct. I had an appointment for the following afternoon. Meredith Thorne was in her 50s. She had sharp gray eyes and wore no-nonsense clothes. Her office was orderly. Books lined the walls. She offered me water. I declined. I told her the story. I did not lead with emotion. I led with facts. The checks, the missing patents, the old trust, the PDF amendment, the empty study, the planned sale, the corporate trustee with no record. I showed her the scans of my father's draft letters. I showed her the PDF from the cloud drive. She listened. She took notes on a yellow legal pad. She did not interrupt. When I finished, she was silent for a full minute. She looked at the PDF on her screen. "This document appears facially valid," she said. "The notary stamp is from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. The witness signature is illegible. That's not uncommon. But if Rockhaven has no record, that's a serious red flag." "What does it mean?" I asked. "It could mean the document was never properly delivered to them. Execution of a trust amendment requires delivery to the trustee. If your father signed this but never sent it, it may not be valid. Or it could mean someone intervened to prevent its filing." "My brother." "Possibly, or your mother, or someone else." She leaned forward. "Ms. Vance, this is a complex situation. Untangling it will require investigation. That investigation will cost money. It will also likely create irrevocable conflict within your family. Are you prepared for that?" I thought of Adrian's hug, the scent of sandalwood, the sympathetic look from Simone. The appraisal number meant to push me out. "Yes," I said, "I am." "Good, then here is what we do. First, we do not alert your brother, we act quietly. We gather evidence. I will send a formal inquiry to Rockhaven. A subpoena may be necessary later. We will also need to examine the original of the old asterisk trust, the one your brother acknowledges. We need to see the physical signature pages. Do you have access?" "No, my brother has it." "We will need to get it, through discovery if we file a petition. But first, I want to search the probate court records to see if any documents related to your father's estate have been filed. If he had a pour-over will, it should be on file. She explained the process: a petition to the probate court to determine the validity of the trust amendment, to request an accounting from Adrian as trustee, to seek a temporary restraining order against the sale of the house. It will be slow, she said. It will be procedural. There will be hearings. There will be paperwork. Your brother will hire competent counsel. He will fight. He will portray you as unstable, greedy, a spinster daughter trying to upend her mother's care. I understand, I said. Do you have any evidence of your own stability, your role here? I told her about managing the property. I showed her records I kept, gardening schedules, forestry management plans, invoices from local tradespeople paid from a joint account I shared with my mother for household expenses. Good, she said. Keep all of that, start a journal. Document every interaction, every phone call. Date, time summary, keep it factual, do not express anger, just record. I agreed. We signed a retainer agreement. I wrote a check from my personal savings. It was a significant amount. It was the beginning. Driving home, I felt a strange calm. The uncertainty was gone. I was in a war. It was a quiet paper war, but it was a war. I had chosen my side, myself. The following week was normal on the surface. I pruned the apple trees. I ordered mulch. I spoke to my mother. She talked about a concert Adrian had taken her to. She said the realtor was excited about the house. I did not argue. I listened. I noted the time of the call in my journal. Meredith Thorne called 3 days later. I found the will, she said. It was filed with the probate court 2 months after your father's death. I wasn't notified. You were named as a beneficiary. You should have been. The court sends notices. Where were they sent? To this address. I never received anything. The court filing shows notice was sent to you at the main house address, not the cottage. It also lists your brother as the petitioner for informal probate. He submitted the will. It's a simple will. It leaves everything to your mother. If she predeceases him, then everything goes to his children per stirps. That's it, no trust. It ports over any assets into the Vance family trust. That's standard. But here's the key. The will filed with the court is dated 5 years ago. It revokes all prior wills. Do you know of a more recent will? My father never discussed his will with me. The PDF amendment in your possession references a separate pour-over will. If that will exists and is more recent, it would control. But it hasn't been filed. Your brother filed the old one. So he is executing the old estate plan, the one where he is the successor trustee. It appears so. The court has accepted it. The administration is underway. What do? We file a petition. We challenge the validity of the will he submitted. We claim the existence of a later will. We demand a formal probate proceeding. We also file a separate action in the civil division against your brother as trustee. We demand an immediate accounting of the Vance family trust. We allege breach of fiduciary duty. We seek his removal. The words were legal and dry. They were the architecture of my defense. Will it stop the sale of the house? I asked. We will request a lease pendens, a notice on the property title that it's subject to litigation. No reputable title company will ensure a sale with a lease pendens on it. It will freeze the transaction. Do it, I said. The papers were filed on a Friday. The probate court petition, the civil complaint, the lease pendens. They were served to Adrian at his office by a sheriff's deputy. Meredith told me this was deliberate. It maximized professional impact. My phone rang at 5:07 p.m. It was Adrian. His calm was gone. His voice was a tense wire. Ilara, what have you done? I've asked the court to clarify our father's estate, I said. You filed a lawsuit against me. You accused me of stealing from my own family, from our mother. I asked for an accounting. If everything is proper, you have nothing to worry about. This is unbelievable. After everything I've done, For Mom, for you, I've handled all the stress, all the details, and this is your thanks, a public malicious lawsuit. It's not public until someone makes it public, Adrian. He was silent for a moment. I could hear his breath, controlled rage. Mom is devastated. She's crying. She can't believe you'd do this. She says you've always been jealous, that you've always resented my success. This was the shift, the move from financial control to emotional erasure. I was no longer the dutiful sister. I was the jealous, unstable one. I'd like to speak to her, I said. You will not upset her further. She is under a doctor's care now, for stress. Because of you, I am her healthcare proxy. I will decide what is best for her, and speaking to you is not best. The line went dead. I put the phone down. My hand was steady. The journal was open on the table. I wrote, 5:07 p.m. Call from A accused me of causing mother's distress. Claims he is her healthcare proxy. Threatened to cut off contact. The next call came from a lawyer. His name was David Ferris. He represented Adrian. His voice was smooth, conciliatory, and sharp as a scalpel. Ms. Vance, my client is deeply saddened by this turn of events. He wishes only to preserve family harmony. These legal actions are a sledgehammer. They will drain family resources. They will cause untold emotional damage. We are prepared to make a very generous settlement offer to make this go away. I'm not interested in a settlement, I said. I'm interested in the truth. The truth is your father loved his family. He created a plan. Your brother is executing it. This other document you claim exists. It's a mystery. No reputable institution has it. Your own expert will tell you it's likely a draft, a thought your father never acted upon. We'll let the court decide, I said. The court process will take years. It will cost you hundreds of thousands of dollars. You will lose, and you will have no family left. Is that what you want? Goodbye, Mr. Ferris. I hung up. The pressure was beginning, the financial threat, the emotional isolation. It was a two-pronged attack. I expected it. It did not make it easier, but it was expected. My mother did not call. The Sunday call never came. The silence from her was louder than any accusation. A week later, a process server came to the cottage. He handed me a thick packet. It was Adrian's response and a counterclaim. He was suing me for intentional infliction of emotional distress, for tortious interference with a contract. He was also filing a petition for a conservatorship over my mother, citing her acute stress and declining health, to protect her from my predatory and destabilizing actions. The counterclaim included an affidavit from my mother. I read it slowly. The language was not quite hers. The phrases were legalistic, but the signature was hers, a wobbly, frail version of her usual confident hand. The affidavit stated that she was afraid of me, that I had always been difficult, that I had manipulated my father in his final years, that I was obsessed with the property and was now trying to steal her security. It said she fully supported Adrian. She wanted the house sold. She wanted me to get help. I placed the affidavit on the table. I felt a physical pain in my chest, a deep, cold ache. This was the ultimate betrayal, not Adrian's greed, my mother's chosen erasure. She was letting him use her voice to erase me. I allowed myself 10 minutes. I sat in the silence. I let the hurt wash through me. I did not fight it. Then I took a breath. I opened my journal. I wrote down the date. I noted the contents of the papers. I wrote, Mother's affidavit filed, allegations false. Signature appears genuine but weak. I scanned the documents. I sent them to Meredith. She called an hour later. This is an aggressive move. The conservatorship is a problem. If he gets it, he controls all her legal decisions. He could gift her assets to himself. He could cut you out completely. We need to challenge it immediately. How? We request an independent medical evaluation. We file an objection. We state that you are her daughter and have a long, stable relationship. We point out the timing. It's clearly retaliatory. Will the court see that? Some judges will, some are cautious. They err on the side of protection. We need to show you are a viable alternative, that you are not a danger. How do I prove a negative? We get our own affidavits, from people who know you both, from her friends, your friends, the local doctor, the gardener, anyone who can attest to your relationship, to your stability. I began making a list. It was a short list. My life was quiet. My friends were few. The gardener, Leo, had known me since I was a child. The local GP, Dr. Evans, had seen our family for years. Mrs. Daly, the librarian in town. My father's old friend, Professor Alden. I called them. I explained the situation simply. I said there was a family dispute, that my brother was seeking control of my mother's affairs, that he was claiming I was a harmful influence. I asked if they would be willing to provide a statement about my character and my relationship with my mother. Their reactions varied. Leo was furious on my behalf. He said, of course, he would help. Dr. Evans was cautious but agreed to provide a factual statement about my mother's health history. Mrs. Daly was sympathetic. Professor Alden was quiet, then said, "Your father was worried about something like this." "What do you mean?" I asked. "He called me about a year before he died. He asked about corporate trustees. He said he didn't want to burden you, but he didn't trust, well, he didn't finish the sentence. He said he was updating things, making sure the land was protected." "Did he send you anything? Any documents?" "No, but he was a meticulous man, Alara. If he wanted something done, he did it. He wouldn't leave a draft floating on a computer." That night, I went back to the cloud drive. I looked at the PDF of the amendment again. I examined the metadata, the file properties. The creation date was 18 months ago. The modification date was 1 day later. The author was listed as E. Vance. The PDF had been created by scanning a document. It was not a digital original. My father had a specific scanner, a compact one he kept in his study. It saved files directly to a memory card. I had not found the memory card. I had not found the scanner. I went back to the main house, to the study. I searched again, not for papers, for the scanner. It was not in the desk, not in the closet. I went to the basement, to a storage room filled with old furniture and boxes. In a box labeled Elia's office supplies, I found it, the scanner. Beneath it, wrapped in a soft cloth, was a small memory card in a plastic case. I took it to the cottage. I inserted it into my computer. The card contained dozens of scanned documents, receipts, old letters, and one folder named VFT Rest. Inside were 3 files: a scan of the signed amendment, identical to the PDF, a scan of a new pour-over will, dated the same day. It left everything to the trust. It appointed Rockhaven Trust Company and me as co-trustees. It explicitly disinherited no one but outlined the separate trust for Adrian. And there was a third document, a cover letter, addressed to Rockhaven Trust Company, attaching the signed amendment and will. It was dated and signed. In the top corner, my father had written a FedEx tracking number. He had sent it. I copied all the files. I saved them in multiple places. Then I looked up the FedEx tracking number. On the FedEx website, I entered the number. The record was still available. It showed a package picked up from our address. It was destined for Rockhaven Trust Company in Boston. It was delivered. It was signed for. The signature was illegible, but it was marked delivered at front desk. My father had executed the documents. He had sent them. Rockhaven claimed they never arrived, or never opened them, or someone intervened. I called Meredith. It was late, but she answered. "I found the memory card," I said. "The original scans, and a FedEx delivery confirmation to Rockhaven, dated 18 months ago." Her voice was alert. "That's it. That's the evidence of delivery. Rockhaven either lost it, which is negligence, or someone there was influenced to lose it. We need to depose their records custodian. We need to find out who signed for that package." "Can we do that?" We amend our complaint. We add Rockhaven as a defendant for negligence and possibly collusion. We subpoena their internal logs. Their security footage from that date is probably long gone, but delivery records, internal routing slips might exist. The strategy expanded. It was no longer just Adrian. It was a corporate entity. The fight grew larger, more expensive, more daunting. "What about my mother's conservatorship hearing?" I asked. "It's in 2 weeks. We'll be ready. We have the affidavits. We have your evidence of a sustained, peaceful relationship. We argue that Adrian is creating a crisis to gain control. The judge may delay a decision. He may order the independent evaluation. That's a win. It buys time." Time, it was the currency of this war. I had to spend my savings to buy it. I had to endure silence to endure it. The next morning, another envelope came. Not a check. A formal letter from the property management company that handled the billing for the house's utilities and taxes. It was a notice of delinquency. The account, paid from the joint household account, was overdue. The automatic payments had been stopped. I logged into the joint bank account. My mother and I were both signers. The balance was usually kept at a comfortable level by monthly transfers from her personal account. Those transfers had stopped. The balance was now negative. The last transfer was 6 weeks ago. Adrian was cutting off the money. He was making the house a financial burden. He was forcing my hand. I transferred enough from my personal savings to cover the bill and bring the account positive. I noted the transaction in my journal. I printed the bank statement. Evidence. I called the bank. I asked about the automatic transfers. The representative was helpful but constrained. "The transfers were initiated from the other account owner's side," she said. "They were canceled by an authorized user on that account." "Who is that?" "I can only see the initials AV on the cancellation request." "Adrian Vance. He was an authorized user on my mother's personal account. Of course." "Thank you," I said. I hung up. Another entry for the journal, another piece of the pattern. The conservatorship hearing was held in a small, wood-paneled courtroom. My mother did not appear. Adrian did. He wore a somber, dark suit. He sat with his lawyer, David Ferris. They looked like a wall of sober competence. I sat with Meredith. We had a thin stack of affidavits. The judge was a weary-looking man in his 60s. He listened to Adrian's lawyer first. "Your Honor, this is a sad but necessary petition. Caroline Vance is a vulnerable widow. She is under significant stress. This stress is directly attributable to the respondents, her daughters, recent and baseless legal attacks. Ms. Vance has a history of instability. She is isolated. She has fixated on the family property to an unhealthy degree. She is now trying to dismantle her mother's financial security. My client, her son, only seeks to protect his mother. To provide a calm, safe environment. He is a successful professional. He is equipped to handle her affairs with care and impartiality." He submitted my mother's affidavit. He submitted a letter from a psychiatrist, Dr. Lowell, who had seen my mother once. It stated she presented with acute anxiety and cognitive overwhelm. It recommended a stable, low-stress environment and suggested temporary oversight of financial matters may be beneficial. Then Meredith stood. "Your Honor, this petition is a transparent litigation tactic. It was filed days after my client challenged the administration of her father's estate. The timing is suspect. The affidavit from Mrs. Vance contains language she does not typically use. We question the circumstances under which it was obtained." She submitted our affidavits. From Leo, who described me as the steady hand on the property for a decade. From Dr. Evans, who stated my mother had no diagnosed cognitive issues at her last physical 8 months ago. From Mrs. Daly, who described seeing us together often, having calm, pleasant lunches. My client has lived in harmony with her mother on this property for years. She manages the home her mother loves. To remove her mother from that home, or to place her under the sole control of a son who lives 2 hours away and is actively trying to sell that home, would be the true cause of distress. The judge looked over the papers. He sighed. "I'm not making a finding of incapacity today," he said. "The evidence is contradictory. I am, however, concerned about the level of conflict and the alleged distress of Mrs. Vance." He looked at Adrian. "Mr. Vance, you are the petitioner. Your mother is not here. Why not?" "Your Honor, the prospect of seeing her daughter in this context was too upsetting for her." Her doctor agreed. The judge turned to me. "Ms. Vance, do you love your mother?" "Yes," I said. My voice was clear in the quiet room. "Do you want what's best for her?" "I do. I believe what's best for her is to be in her home, with her things, with the life she knows. Not to be put under a conservatorship and have her house sold out from under her." The judge nodded slowly. "I am ordering an independent evaluation. A court-appointed guardian ad litem will visit Mrs. Vance. They will assess her situation, her wishes, and the family dynamics. They will report back to this court in 60 days. Until that report is filed, no conservatorship is granted. All parties are to cooperate fully with the guardian ad litem." "Is that understood?" We both said yes. It was a temporary reprieve, a 60-day stay of execution. We walked out of the courtroom. Adrian and his lawyer walked ahead of us. They did not look back. In the parking lot, Meredith said, "It's a good result. A guardian ad litem is neutral. They'll see through this. But you must be prepared. The guardian will interview you. They will be observing everything. Your demeanor, your home, your mother's home. Be calm, be factual. Do not speak ill of your brother, just present your reality." "What about the money? He's cut off the household account." "We can file a motion for temporary support. Argue he is dissipating trust assets by failing to maintain the property. But it's more process, more time. For now, use your funds. Document every penny. It will be reimbursed if we win." "If we win," I repeated. "We have the delivery confirmation now," she said. "That's a tangible thread to pull. We start pulling it tomorrow." The guardian ad litem was a woman named Sarah Jensen. She was a social worker with 20 years of experience. She called me 2 days later to schedule a visit. Her voice was pleasant and utterly neutral. She came on a Tuesday morning. She drove a sensible sedan. She wore comfortable clothes and carried a simple notebook. I offered her tea. We sat in the cottage. She asked me about my childhood, my relationship with my parents, my brother. She asked about my daily routine. She asked what I thought my mother needed. I answered honestly. I said my mother was a private person. She valued her independence. She loved her garden and her books. I said I believed the sudden push to sell the house, combined with the legal conflict, was the source of her stress, not me. "Your brother says you are isolated, that you have an unhealthy attachment to the land." "I am attached," I agreed. "I've cared for it for 12 years. It's my home and my work. But I have friends. I have a life in the community. I am not isolated." She took notes. She asked to see the main house. I took her through it. She noticed the cleanliness, the emptiness of the study. "It feels like someone has already moved out," she observed. "My brother cleared my father's papers. My mother took some personal items. The rest is waiting, I suppose." She nodded. She asked to see my mother's room. It was perfectly made. The scent of her perfume lingered. The photo on the nightstand was of Adrian's graduation. "Does your mother have a favorite space?" Sarah asked. "The sunroom, in the afternoons. She reads there." We went to the sunroom. The plants were healthy. I had been watering them. The chair had her reading glasses and a bookmark in a novel on the side table. Sarah looked at the scene. She made another note. She spent an hour with me. She did not give any indication of her thoughts. She thanked me and said she would be in touch after she saw my mother. I knew Adrian would have prepared my mother. The house in the city would be staged for vulnerability. There would be a hired caregiver, perhaps, soft lighting, a show of support. I could only wait. Meredith's investigation into Rockhaven began. We filed the amended complaint. We subpoenaed their records for the date of the FedEx delivery. Their lawyer responded with delay tactics. They requested a protective order. They argued the subpoena was overly broad. It was a dance. Each step required a counterstep. A hearing was scheduled, more time. 3 weeks after the guardian's visit, I received a letter from the probate court. A notice of hearing regarding the validity of the will. The court had set a date for a formal proof of will hearing in 2 months. My father's old will was being challenged. By me. I was the one forcing the court to scrutinize it. Adrian would have to prove its validity. I would present evidence of the newer one. The battle lines were now drawn in 2 courts. The probate court over the will, the civil court over the trust and the conservatorship, and the silent shadow war with Rockhaven. The financial pressure was constant. I paid the property taxes. I paid the insurance. I paid for the gardener, Leo, out of my own pocket. My savings were dwindling. Meredith's bills arrived monthly. They were detailed and substantial. I considered getting a job, but any job would take me away from the property. It would be used as evidence I didn't need it, that I could live elsewhere. I had to hold the ground, literally. I started selling things, not family things. My things, a piece of jewelry my father had given me, my camera equipment, I listed them online. The transactions were small, but they helped. I told no one, especially not Adrian. The Guardian ad litem's report was filed with the court on the 59th day. Meredith got a copy. She read it to me over the phone. "It's balanced," she said, "which, in this situation, is good." Sarah Jensen had found my mother to be somewhat anxious but cognitively intact. She noted my mother expressed a strong desire for peace. My mother had told her she trusted Adrian to handle things and just wanted the fighting to stop. She said the idea of selling the house made her sad, but if it ended the conflict, she would agree. About me, the report stated I was clearly competent and deeply connected to the property. It said I presented as calm and factual. It noted the significant discrepancy between my description of our relationship and the allegations in the affidavit. Sarah Jensen recommended against a full conservatorship. She suggested instead a limited monitored guardianship if the court felt oversight was needed. This would require Adrian to report certain financial decisions to the court, but not strip my mother of all rights. Most importantly, she recommended my mother be allowed to return home if she wished, with appropriate support. She noted that isolation in her son's apartment might be contributing to her anxiety. "It's not a victory," Meredith said, "but it's a devastating blow to his petition for full control. The judge is unlikely to grant it now. He'll probably order the limited guardianship. That means Adrian has to file reports. We can audit those reports. It creates a paper trail." The hearing was brief. The judge adopted the guardian's recommendations almost entirely. A limited guardianship was established. Adrian was appointed guardian, but with specific restrictions. He could not sell the house without further court order. He had to provide a quarterly accounting of my mother's finances to the court. He also had to facilitate my mother's return home if she requested it. We left the courtroom. Adrian looked at me for the first time since this began. His expression was not angry, it was calculating, reassessing. "You're costing this family a fortune, Alara." "I'm seeking the truth, Adrian. That has a cost." "There is no newer will. There is no other trust. You're chasing a ghost, and you're going to end up with nothing." "We'll see," I said. My mother did not come home. Adrian called me a week later. His tone was different. Weary, almost brotherly. "Mom doesn't want to move back. The trip is too much. The memories are too hard. She's settled here. She has a nurse companion. She's comfortable." "Did you ask her, or did you tell her?" "I asked her, in front of her doctor. She said no. I can have the doctor write a letter." "That won't be necessary," I said. I knew the game, the soft coercion, the presentation of choice within a controlled framework. "Wouldn't you be more comfortable here? The house is so empty." Alara is so busy with her lawsuit. I could fight it. I could demand the judge order her return. It would be another brutal public hearing. It would force my mother to choose sides in open court. I would not do that to her. Not yet. I'd like to visit her, I said. She's not up for visitors. The doctor said minimal stimulation. I am not a visitor. I am her daughter. The doctor's orders are clear, Alara. I'm sorry. The barrier was now medical. It was the most effective kind. It used care as a weapon. I called Dr. Evans. I asked if he would be willing to see my mother for a second opinion. He was hesitant. He said it was ethically tricky to see a patient who was under another doctor's care. He suggested I have her new doctor contact him. I knew that would never happen. The isolation was complete. I was cut off from my mother. I was bleeding money. The legal machinery ground on slowly. Then a break, a small one. The hearing on our subpoena to Rockhaven was held. Their lawyer argued fiercely against it. Meredith argued that their negligence, if that's what it was at the heart of the dispute. The judge, a no-nonsense woman, ruled in our favor. The plaintiff has shown a credible basis to believe a document intended for the defendant was delivered and not acted upon. The subpoena is reasonable. Rockhaven Trust will comply. They will produce all records related to the receipt, routing, and handling of any delivery from Elias Vance in the specified time period. They will also produce a witness for deposition. We had pierced the wall. 2 weeks later, a large box arrived at Meredith's office. It contained photocopies of Rockhaven's internal mail logs, delivery manifests, and routing slips for a 3-month window. We spent an afternoon in her conference room. Going through them page by page, it was tedious. It was like looking for a single specific leaf in a forest. Then Meredith stopped. She held up a sheet. It was a daily log of packages received at the corporate mailroom, dated 18 months and 5 days after my father's scan. There, halfway down the list, was the FedEx tracking number. It was logged in at 10:14 a.m. It was signed for by M. Dockery. In the routing column, someone had written Trust Admin Parrish. Robert Parrish, the man who told me they had no record. It was received, I said. The words were quiet. It was received, Meredith confirmed, and routed to Robert Parrish's department. Now we need to know what happened after that. We scheduled the deposition of Rockhaven's records custodian. A nervous-looking, middle-aged man named Carl appeared with their lawyer. He confirmed the mailroom log was authentic. He confirmed the routing note. Meredith asked, "What is the standard procedure when a package like this, marked for the trust department, is received?" It would be delivered to the department administrative assistant. They would open it, log it, and distribute it to the appropriate trust officer. And if it contained legal documents, like a trust amendment, they would be forwarded to the legal department for review, then to the assigned trust officer for implementation. Is there a log of that? There should be, an intake log in the trust administration department. Did you bring that log? The lawyer objected, beyond the scope. Meredith rephrased. She asked if a search for such a log had been conducted. Carl admitted it had. He said no log entry for that date referencing Elias Vance or that tracking number was found. So the package reached the mailroom. It was routed to Mr. Parrish's department, and then it disappeared from the record. Objection, speculation. But the point was made. The thread was pulled. A package had vanished inside Rockhaven. Our next move was to depose Robert Parrish himself. He was a different kind of witness. Calm, polished, slightly annoyed. He sat with his lawyer, a sleek woman from a big firm. Meredith took him through his background, his role. Then she showed him the mailroom log. "Do you recognize this entry, Mr. Parrish?" He glanced at it. "I see a FedEx number. I have no independent memory of this specific package." "It was routed to your department." "So it says. What would have happened to it in your department?" As Mr. Carl described, it would have been processed by administrative staff. If it contained trust documents, they would have been reviewed. Were you ever made aware of an amendment to the Vance Family Trust? No, I was not. Even though the package was addressed to your attention. Packages are often addressed to the department head. It doesn't mean I personally handle them. But you would have been notified of a significant change to a prospective client's estate plan, wouldn't you? Especially one that named your company as a corporate trustee. If it had been processed properly, yes, likely. But you were not notified. I was not. Can you explain how a package, logged into your department, could vanish without a trace? Objection. Assumes facts not in evidence. I'll rephrase. Have you ever in your career had a package containing legal documents go missing within your department? Not to my knowledge. Did you ever have any communication with Adrian Vance, Elias Vance's son? A slight tightening around his eyes. I may have spoken to him in the initial inquiry phase when his father was considering our services. When was that? Around the same time, a year and a half ago. Did you speak to him after the package was delivered? I don't recall. Let me refresh your memory. Meredith produced his phone records, obtained through a separate subpoena to his cell provider. They showed 2 calls from Robert Parrish's office line to Adrian Vance's cell phone. One was the day after the FedEx delivery. One was a week later. Parrish looked at the record. His composure cracked just for a second. I may have returned a call. I don't remember the substance. Would it help you remember if I told you that shortly after these calls, all activity on the Vance file in your system ceased, that no account was opened? Objection. Counsel is testifying. But the seed was planted for the judge. A connection, a phone call, a disappearing package. The deposition ended without a smoking gun, but the circumstantial evidence was building. A picture of communication between Adrian and the trust officer. A package that disappeared. A corporate entity with no record. We were building our case, brick by quiet brick. The probate hearing for the proof of will was approaching. Meredith prepared me. I would have to testify. I would have to sit in the witness box and explain why I believed my father had made a new will. I would have to be cross-examined by Adrian's lawyer. He would try to paint me as delusional, greedy. The night before the hearing, I walked the property. It was a clear, cold night. The stars were sharp. I stood at the edge of the woods looking back at the house. The lights were off. It was a dark shape against the sky. My father had loved this land, not for its value, but for its silence, for its trees. I understood him now in a way I never had when he was alive. He was trying to protect this silence. He saw a storm coming in the shape of his own son's ambition. He tried to build a levee of paperwork, a trust, a corporate trustee, me. But the storm had found a weakness, a person at the bank, a mother's fear, a sister's trust. I went to bed early. I slept a dreamless sleep. The probate courtroom was different, smaller, more crowded with the detritus of other people's lives. File boxes lined the walls. The hearing was before the same weary judge who had handled the conservatorship. Adrian was there with David Ferris. My mother was not. The purpose was to prove the validity of the will Adrian had submitted. The old will. He had to present witnesses to the signing. The lawyer who drafted it, now retired, had provided a sworn affidavit. It was a standard will, properly executed. Then it was our turn. Meredith called me to the stand. I swore to tell the truth. I sat in the wooden chair. I looked at the judge. Meredith led me through my story. My role, finding the checks. The PDF, the memory card, the FedEx delivery, the empty study. I spoke calmly. I stuck to facts. Then David Ferris stood for cross-examination. He approached with a friendly smile. Ms. Vance, you loved your father, didn't you? Yes. And you miss him terribly. Yes. This has been a very hard time for you. It has. You feel very close to the family home. You've invested a lot of yourself in it. I have. And you would be very upset if you had to leave it. It is my home. Is it worth fighting your entire family for, alienating your mother, dragging your brother through court? Objection, argumentative. Sustained. Ferris changed tack. This document you found, the PDF, did you ever find the original signed copy? No. Just a digital file. And a scan on a memory card from my father's scanner. A scanner anyone could have used. It was in my father's possession. But after his death, who had access to the house? My mother, my brother, myself. So any of you could have created that scan at any time. The metadata shows it was created 18 months ago. Metadata can be altered, can't it? I wouldn't know how. He moved on. You claim your brother is manipulating your mother, yet the court-appointed guardian found your mother to be cognitively sound. She found your brother to be providing appropriate care. The guardian also found my brother's petition for full conservatorship was unnecessary. But she didn't find malice, did she? She noted the discrepancy in the affidavit. Ferris picked up a document. Ms. Vance, do you have a history of anxiety, of seeing threats where none exist? I felt a chill. What do you mean? I have here, under a protective order, records from your college counseling center. 20 years ago, you sought help for what was described as social anxiety and paranoid ideation. Is that correct? The room tilted. I had gone for a few sessions. After a difficult breakup, a therapist had used a clinical term. It was in a file I had forgotten existed. Meredith was on her feet. Objection. Relevance. This is a character attack on a decades-old protected health record obtained through improper means. It goes to the witness's state of mind and propensity to misinterpret events, Ferris countered. The judge looked pained. I'll allow it, but narrowly. Ms. Vance, answer the question. I took a breath. I saw a counselor in college for a short time. I was struggling with a personal situation. I have not required any mental health care since. Paranoid ideation, Ferris repeated. That means a tendency to believe others are plotting against you, to see patterns of persecution. It was a clinical term used once in a specific context, I said, my voice still steady. It does not describe my life. Doesn't it? You see a pattern of persecution now, from your brother, from a bank, even, it seems, from your own mother. I see a pattern of facts, documents, financial transactions. He let the question hang. He had made his point. To the judge, I was now a potentially unstable woman, prone to seeing plots, a woman clinging to her home. He finished his cross. I stepped down. My legs felt weak. Meredith called our document examiner next, a retired gentleman who had worked for the state police. He testified that the signatures on the PDF amendment and the new will were, in his expert opinion, genuine. They matched known samples of my father's signature. The notary stamp was valid. The document showed no signs of digital tampering. On cross, Ferris got him to admit that a high-quality forgery was possible, that he could not say with absolute certainty it was not a forgery, only that it was consistent. The hearing ended. The judge took the matter under advisement. He would rule within 30 days on the validity of the old will, on whether there was enough evidence of a newer one to set aside the probate already granted. We walked out. Adrian passed me. He did not look at me. He was speaking quietly to Ferris. He seemed confident. In the car, Meredith was quiet for a moment. The college records were a low blow, but effective. We need to counter it. How? We get an affidavit from your current doctor, stating you are of sound mind. We get one from someone who knew you then to contextualize it. A friend. It was so long ago, I said. The shame felt fresh. A private struggle weaponized. I know, but this is what they do. They attack your credibility. We must defend it. The 30-day wait was agony. The silence from the court was absolute. I kept up my routines. The garden began to show signs of spring, buds on the trees, snowdrops in the shady patches. I received a letter from the limited guardian's office. Adrian's first quarterly accounting for my mother's finances. I pored over it. It listed her income, Social Security, a pension from my father's firm, the disbursements from the Vance Family Trust, the royalty payments. Her expenses were high. The nurse companion cost $6,000 a month. The apartment rental was $4,000. There were charges for therapy, for gourmet meal delivery, for transportation. It also listed a consulting fee paid to Adrian Vance as trustee of the Vance Family Trust for estate management services. $50,000. He was paying himself from the trust, from the assets that were supposed to support my mother, and ultimately to be shared with me. I sent the accounting to Meredith immediately. "This is our leverage," she said. "A trustee paying himself an exorbitant fee without court approval, while simultaneously trying to sell the primary asset. We file an emergency motion for his removal. We attach this." We filed the motion. We argued Adrian was self-dealing. He was dissipating trust assets for his own benefit while neglecting the maintenance of the trust's major asset, the house. We requested the court suspend his powers immediately and appoint a neutral successor trustee. The motion triggered another hearing. This one was urgent. Adrian's response was furious. He claimed the fee was reasonable for the complex work involved. He claimed the household expenses were high because of the specialized care my mother needed, care made necessary by the stress I was causing. It was a perfect circle. I caused the stress that justified the expenses that drained the assets. The hearing was tense. The judge, now familiar with our saga, looked exhausted by us all. Meredith presented the accounting. She highlighted the fee. She compared it to standard trustee fees in the state. It was 10 times the norm. Adrian's lawyer argued that the trust document allowed for reasonable compensation, that the complexity justified it. The judge asked, "What complexity, Mr. Ferris? The trust hasn't been administered. The house hasn't been sold. The investments, by your own earlier admission, are straightforward. What exactly has Mr. Vance done to earn $50,000 in a few months?" Ferris stumbled. He talked about negotiations with realtors, consultations with tax advisors, protecting the trust from frivolous litigation. The judge's eyebrows rose. "You mean defending against his sister's lawsuit? You want the trust to pay for him to fight the beneficiary who is challenging his conduct? That's an interesting position." It did not go well for Adrian. The judge did not remove him outright. He issued a temporary order. He froze the trust's assets, except for approved expenses for my mother's direct care. He ordered Adrian to return the $50,000 fee to the trust immediately. He appointed a special master, an accountant, to review all trust transactions from the date of my father's death. And he set a date for a full hearing on the removal petition. In 60 days. It was a significant victory. A neutral eye would be on the money. Adrian's control was being peeled back, layer by layer. The special master, a stern woman named Gloria Walsh, contacted me. She wanted access to all records related to the property. She wanted to see the household account ledgers I had kept. She wanted to walk the house and grounds. I provided everything. I gave her a tour. She was brisk, professional. She took notes on a tablet. "You've maintained this place impeccably," she observed. "It's my job," I said. "A job you haven't been paid for in some time." "No." She nodded. She asked no personal questions. A week later, the probate judge issued his ruling. It came in the mail, a thick envelope. My hands were cold as I opened it. The judge's order was dense with legal language. The conclusion was on the last page. "The court finds that the will dated 5 years ago and offered for probate by Adrian Vance was duly executed. and is valid on its face. However, the petitioner, Alara Vance, has presented credible, unrebutted evidence of the existence of a later testamentary instrument. The digital and physical evidence, coupled with the testimony of the document examiner, raises a substantial question as to the decedent's final intent. Accordingly, the informal probate of the earlier will is vacated. A formal testacy proceeding is hereby commenced to determine whether the later will should be admitted to probate. The previously appointed personal representative, Adrian Vance, is suspended pending the outcome of this proceeding. The court appoints the public administrator to serve as special administrator of the estate, with limited powers to preserve assets during the pendency of this matter. I read it twice. We had not won, but we had not lost. The old will was set aside. The playing field was leveled. A neutral public administrator now controlled my father's estate, apart from the trust, and a formal trial would be held to decide which will was valid. I called Meredith. She let out a rare, sharp laugh. "This is excellent. The public administrator is a bureaucrat. They follow the rules. They won't play favorites. And now we have a trial. A real trial where we can subpoena everyone. Adrian, Robert Parrish, your mother if necessary. We can present the whole story." The public administrator's office contacted me within days. A Mr. Dalton. He asked for an inventory of the house's contents. He asked for keys. He said he would be securing the property. I asked about my cottage. He said as it was a separate structure and my primary residence, it would not be part of the estate inventory at this time. I could remain. The main house was now under the control of the court. Adrian could not sell it. He could not even enter it without permission. The momentum had shifted. The systems I had invoked were beginning to work. Slowly, imperfectly, but they were working. Adrian called me. It was late in the evening. His voice was stripped of all pretense. It was flat and cold. "You think you're clever," he said. "You've tied everything up in knots. You've turned our father's legacy into a circus." "I've asked for transparency, that's all." "Transparency? You've unleashed the government into our private affairs. You've made our mother a ward of the court in all but name. For what? A piece of land." "For what was intended," I said. "For the truth." "The truth is you're going to lose. At trial, you have a PDF. I have the original signed trust. I have a mother who will testify she never knew of any new will. That dad was happy with the old plan. Will she testify, Adrian? Will you put her on the stand? Your own mother, to be cross-examined about her fear, about her affidavit." He was silent. "You've made her a puppet," I continued, my voice still quiet. "But puppets can be examined. The strings can be seen. Are you sure you want that?" He hung up. The threat was empty. He would not put her on the stand. The risk was too great. A skilled lawyer like Meredith could gently unravel the narrative, could ask her about her favorite room, could ask her if she really wanted to never see her garden again. The performance might crumble. We entered a new phase, the pretrial discovery phase. We submitted interrogatories, requests for admission. We demanded Adrian produce all communications with Rockhaven Trust, with Robert Parrish. We demanded he produce the original trust document. His lawyers fought each request. They filed objections. The court ruled on them. Most were overruled. The process was grinding, but it moved. The special master, Gloria Walsh, issued her preliminary report on the trust. It was damning. She found the $50,000 fee to be grossly excessive and not justified by the work performed. She found several other questionable disbursements for travel and meals labeled as trust administration. She noted that the trust had paid the legal fees for Adrian's defense against my lawsuit, a clear conflict. Most importantly, she found that the royalty payments from Vance IP Holding LLC were not being deposited into the trust. They were going into a separate account controlled solely by Adrian. She calculated the total diverted over the past 8 months at nearly $20,000. She recommended Adrian be removed as trustee immediately. She recommended a forensic accounting. She recommended the court consider a referral to the district attorney's office for possible fiduciary fraud. The report was filed with the court. It was a seismic event. Adrian's lawyers requested a confidential settlement conference. They reached out to Meredith. Meredith told me about it in her office. They want to talk. They want to make this go away. They know the special master's report is a disaster. If the judge sees it, removal is guaranteed. A criminal referral is possible. What do they want? They'll want you to agree to drop everything. The trust litigation, the probate trial, in exchange for a buyout, for you to leave the cottage, to walk away. And if I do? Then they fight. They attack the special master's credibility. They drag out the trial. They bankrupt you with legal fees. And even if you win, the estate may be depleted. It's a gamble. What do you recommend? I recommend we listen. We go to the conference. We hear their offer. We don't have to accept, but we should know what they're thinking. The settlement conference was held in a bland conference room at the courthouse. A mediator was present, a retired judge. Adrian was there with David Ferris and another lawyer. I was there with Meredith. Adrian looked older, thinner. The easy confidence was gone. He looked at the table, not at me. The mediator explained the rules. Each side would state their position. Ferris went first. He spoke of family, healing, the toll on their mother. He said Adrian was willing to make a generous offer to end the conflict. He laid out a proposal. I would receive a lump sum payment of $200,000 from the estate. I would sign over any and all claims to the trust, the estate, and the property. I would vacate the cottage within 90 days. I would agree to a mutual non-disparagement clause. All legal proceedings would be dismissed with prejudice. In return, I would be left alone. The fighting would stop. I listened. $200,000. It was not nothing. It was enough to start over somewhere else, far away. Meredith spoke next. She was polite but firm. She outlined the strength of our position, the special master's report, the pending criminal referral, the evidence of the newer will. She said the value of the estate, clear of debt, was approximately $1.2 million. The trust assets, including the diverted royalties, were another $400,000. A buyout of Ms. Vance's likely half-interest, given the evidence of the later will, should be in the range of $800,000, not $200,000, and it should include the cottage, free and clear. Ferris scoffed. The cottage is part of the property. It's worth a third of the total value alone, and the later will is a fantasy. You have no original, you have a PDF. At trial, we will eviscerate it. The mediator let them argue for a while. Then he turned to me. Ms. Vance, what is it you want, truly? All eyes turned to me. Adrian finally looked at me. His eyes were hard. I thought of my father's chair, the empty study, the sunroom with my mother's glasses, the oak tree whose Latin name was my password. I want the truth to be recognized, I said. I want what my father intended. I want my mother to be free from fear, and I want to stay in my home. The mediator nodded. Those are not things a settlement can always provide. We took a break. In the hallway, Adrian approached me. Meredith stepped slightly between us. Alara, he said. His voice was low. You can't win. Even if you get the house, what then? Mom will never speak to you again. I will be facing charges. The family will be destroyed. Is that what Dad would have wanted? I think Dad saw this coming, I said. I think that's why he tried to change the rules, to protect the family from you. His face flushed. I have done nothing but care for this family. You're the one who brought the lawyers, the courts, you. I brought the light, Adrian. You're the one who was working in the dark. He stared at me. For a moment, I saw not my brother, but a stranger, a man who had convinced himself that his greed was care, that his control was love. The mask had fully fallen. We went back into the room. The mediator asked if there was room to move. Meredith said, Our client will consider a settlement that reflects the true value of her interest, and that includes a mechanism to ensure her mother's well-being is not used as a bargaining chip. Ferris said they would consider a higher number, but not extortionate. They would never agree to a formal oversight of their mother. The conference ended without an agreement, but the lines were drawn. They were willing to pay me to go away, but not what I was due. We left. In the car, Meredith said, "They're scared. The special master's report has them terrified of a criminal investigation. They will improve the offer, but they will never give you the cottage. That's the prize for Adrian. The whole property cleared of you." "Then we go to trial," I said. The trial date was set for 3 months away. The public administrator, Mr. Dalton, continued his work. He hired an appraiser for the house. He located some of my father's old investment accounts. He also found something else. In a safe deposit box at a local bank, under my father's name, that Adrian had apparently not known about or had not been able to access. It contained the original, signed, and notarized copies of the trust amendment and the new pour-over will. They were on heavy paper. The signatures were dark ink. They were real. Mr. Dalton called Meredith. She called me, her voice vibrating with triumph. "We have them, the originals, in the court's possession. There is no longer any question of authenticity. The game is over." The public administrator filed the new will with the probate court. He petitioned for it to be admitted to formal probate. He provided a sworn affidavit detailing the discovery. The effect was instantaneous. Adrian's legal position collapsed. The cornerstone of his defense, that the new will was a digital forgery, was gone. The original existed. It had been signed, notarized, and stored securely by my father. Faced with this, Adrian's lawyers did what good lawyers do. They folded. They contacted Meredith with a new settlement offer. It was entirely different. Adrian would resign as trustee of the Vance Family Trust. He would not contest the appointment of a neutral corporate trustee to succeed him. He would repay all questionable fees and the diverted royalty money, with interest, to the trust. He would drop his counterclaims against me. In exchange, I would agree not to pursue a criminal referral based on the special master's report. I would agree to a mutual release of all claims. The probate would proceed with the new will. The trust would be administered according to the amendment, with Rockhaven and me as co-trustees. And I would receive the cottage, deeded to me free and clear as my separate property, not part of the trust, my home. It was complete victory, on paper. There was one more condition. A personal one. My mother would be given the choice by the new trustee of where to live. If she chose to return home, a live-in caregiver would be arranged and paid for by the trust. If she chose to stay with Adrian, the trust would pay a fair rent to him for her lodging and care. I would have no say in her daily life, and she would have no obligation to see me. I would have to accept that, the possibility of a permanent estrangement. I sat in my cottage. I looked at the terms on my computer screen. It was justice. It was procedural, quiet, and thorough. It returned control of the estate to my father's stated wishes. It punished Adrian's overreach not with prison, but with loss of control and financial restitution. It protected my mother's choices. It gave me security. It also carved a canyon through the heart of my family that might never be bridged. I thought about my father. What would he have wanted? He wanted the land protected. He wanted me to have a home. He wanted my mother cared for. He wanted Adrian provided for, but not in control. This settlement achieved all of that, at the cost of the family itself. But I realized the family he knew had already been destroyed, not by my lawsuit, but by Adrian's choices in the dark. My actions had only brought those choices into the light. I told Meredith to accept. The final hearing was anticlimactic. A series of stipulations were read into the record. Orders were signed by the judge. The new will was admitted to probate. The public administrator was confirmed as the personal representative. Adrian's resignation as trustee was accepted. A reputable trust company, not Rockhaven, was appointed as corporate co-trustee with me. The judge praised both sides for reaching a resolution. He hoped the family could find peace. Outside the courthouse, Adrian was getting into a car with his lawyer. He did not look at me. He was a man who had lost a great deal. His authority, a significant portion of money he had considered his, the narrative of himself as the flawless, successful son. He had not lost his freedom. That was the mercy I showed. The mercy the special master's report had compelled me to show. I got into my own car. I drove home, to my home. The paperwork took months to finalize. The deed to the cottage was recorded in my name. The trust assets were transferred. Adrian made the required repayments. The special master's final report was filed, noting the corrections. No criminal referral was made. My mother stayed with Adrian. The trust paid a monthly sum for her care. I sent a letter to her, in care of the new trustee. I said the door was open. The sunroom was waiting. I enclosed a photo of her garden in early summer. She did not reply. The new corporate trustee, a woman named Anya, was efficient and kind. She consulted with me on decisions about the main house. We agreed not to sell it for now. We rented it to a professor from the nearby college on a yearly lease. The income supports the trust. I live in the cottage. I manage the grounds, now paid a modest salary by the trust for my work. It is a job. It is my home. Sometimes in the evenings, I walk to the main house. I check on things. I speak to the tenant. The house is alive with someone else's sounds, their music, their laughter. It is not a tomb. It is a house again. The profound silence that followed the legal storm was its own kind of aftermath. There was no celebration, no vindictive joy. There was only the quiet of a battlefield after the armies have left. I rebuilt my life around the facts that remained. The trees, the garden, the paperwork that proved this place was mine, the memory of my father's careful, thwarted plans. The emotional processing was slow. It came in waves, often at unexpected times. While pruning a rose bush, I would feel a surge of grief not for my father, but for the brother I thought I had. While balancing the trust's gardening ledger, I would feel a cold fury at the sheer, small-minded greed of it all. And sometimes, looking at the main house, I would feel a hollow ache for my mother's presence, for the simple comfort of her voice on a Sunday night. I did not reach out again. The ball was in her court. The trustee, Anya, reported that my mother was in good health, that she seemed content, that she asked no questions about the property or the legal outcome. It was as if that chapter of her life had been sealed shut. I had to accept that I might be sealed inside it. Adrian sold his city condominium. He moved to another state, according to a change of address notice forwarded by the trustee. He took a job at a smaller firm. I heard this indirectly, through the professional grapevine that still connected my lawyer to his. He had not been disbarred. He had not been charged. He had simply been diminished. His punishment was a quieter, more private ruin. A year passed, then two. The trust runs smoothly. Anya and I have a cordial professional relationship. We speak quarterly. The professor in the main house is quiet and pays his rent on time. The gardens are more beautiful than ever. Leo still works for me. We never speak of what happened. We talk about soil pH and blight resistance. I have made a few friends in town. Not close ones, but people to have coffee with. I volunteer at the Historical Society, archiving old land deeds. There is a poetry in that, preserving the intentions of people long gone. I am not unhappy. I am at peace. But it is a peace that rests on a foundation of loss, a specific, calibrated loss. I traded a family for a home. I traded a fiction for the truth. I sometimes wonder if it was a fair trade. Last week, on a cold, bright morning, a letter arrived. It was not a check. It was handwritten on heavy cream paper. The return address was an unfamiliar one in a warm climate. I knew the handwriting instantly. It was my mother's, steadier than it was in the affidavit, her old, confident hand. I opened it. There was a single sheet. Ilara asterisk. I am sorry for the silence. It has taken me a long time to find the words, longer to find the courage. I was afraid, not of you, never of you. I was afraid of the conflict, of losing both of my children. Adrian was so certain, so forceful. He made it seem like the only way to keep any piece of my life together was to agree with him, to let him handle it. I thought I was choosing peace. I chose cowardice. I have read the documents now, the trust amendment, your father's letters. Anya was kind enough to explain it all to me. I understand what he was trying to do. I understand what you were trying to protect. I do not know if I can ever come back to the house. The memories there are layered now, not just of your father, but of what I allowed to happen. It may be too painful. But I would like to see you, if you are willing. We could meet somewhere neutral, for tea. There is no excuse for what I did. I can only offer this late and inadequate apology. And the truth, I love you. I have always loved you. I was just very, very lost. Yours asterisk. Mom asterisk. I held the letter. The paper trembled in my hand. I read it again and again. The relief was not sweet. It was sharp and aching. It opened a wound I thought had scarred over. It was an offer of a thread where once there had been a cord. I did not answer immediately. I sat with it for a day. I walked the property. I stood under my father's oak tree. I thought about quiet justice. It had come through law and paper. It had secured the land. It had exposed the manipulation. It had given me a home. But it could not give me back what was taken. The trust, the years of easy belonging, the uncomplicated love of a mother, that was gone, replaced by something more fragile, more conscious. This letter was not part of the legal resolution. It was outside of it, an aftermath of the aftermath, a human response to the machinery of justice. I decided to write back. My words were simple. I said I would like to have tea. I suggested a place halfway between here and where she lived, a quiet hotel with a garden. I gave a few possible dates. I mailed the letter. I did not know what would come of it. A meeting might be stilted. We might find we are strangers bound by a painful history. The connection might not reignite. But the offer was there. A door cracked open after a long winter. That is where things stand. The trust is administered. The house is rented. The cottage is mine. The legal files are in boxes in my closet. A mother has written a letter. A brother is gone. I tend the garden. I pay my bills. I live a quiet life. The justice I sought was slow. It was procedural. It was undramatic. There was no shouting in a courtroom, no dramatic confession. Just the steady accumulation of evidence, the application of rules, the weighing of signatures on paper. It was enough. It had to be. Sometimes, in the deep quiet of the evening, when the light fades over the land my father loved, I am left with a single, haunting question. If he were here to see it all, the preserved trees, the intact deed, the silent cottage, the broken family, would he think his careful, final plans were worth the cost?